Hey, this is Dr. Drew, and you were listening to This Life
with Bob Forrest
and Dr. Drew.
Here we are.
We are here indeed. Welcome, everybody. If you love the show, tell a friend. We love your feedback. Join the email list at doctor.com/contact. You get a weekly email. And Susan, is the weekly email include the opioid diatribe, the opioid series?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We put a Bob, you should read this. We put a multi-chapter series out about how the opioid addiction, the heroin
Bear Aspirin Company.
Yeah. But how this happened and the history of it all the way back into prehistory, all the way forward, and we're writing the Suboxone part right now, which is astonishing. So we want to get that part right.
Is that a craving suppressant drug?
Stop it. We'll talk about it later. On the email list, we cannot give you medical advice, of course, and I can, or even send responses via email. But if you don't get discouraged, because we will bring them here and we'll be reading them on the air and dealing with them. Also, please go to doctor.com, click through on the sponsor banner to support the podcast. We have a lot to offer. If you want to get some special prices on Bergamot, again, it's that statin-like product that's over-the-counter, really good for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, good for metabolic syndrome. Click on the banner at doctor.com. You get a 25% discount with the code DREW at checkout. We have these amazing products, of course, the Hydrolite, which Bob steals from us. His junkie self steals from us, and then he consumes it in mass quantities.
I wondered if you were going to confront me on it. You're going to say, where are all those boxes of Hydrolite that we have?
I am taking, the First Lady of Love has put these bags together, Hydrolite, so I can take, I'm doing a drunk history episode
I know,
week,
I heard that.
And she's going to have lots of Hydrolite there. That banner, checkout is Drew18 at checkout, and you get 30% off that product. Again, anytime you click on the Amazon banner, doctor.com, these amazing, we get Amazon associate points too. So buy our books, your daily Amazon purchases there will really keep these shows coming. So it is my distinct pleasure to bring my friend Greg Gutfeld into the show.
And it was not easy.
Greg, technically we got you here.
Yes. Thank you for having me on a lovely Sunday.
Yes, indeed. And thank you for putting a little time aside for us. Follow Greg at, are you at Greg Gutfeld and at Greg Gutfeld Show, both?
I think so, or just at Greg Gutfeld. You don't even have to follow me.
Oh, please.
It's okay.
The new book is the Gutfeld Monologues. Here is the front page of that. Do buy that book.
Out in about 2 months, I think, end of July.
Turn the TV on, you'll see him.
And he's on Fox News, obviously, and he has humbly the best show on Fox Television, Fox News, which is his Saturday night show, the Greg Gutfeld Show.
Yep,
same name.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for having had me on there a few times. I'm not. None of your cast is, well, maybe Kat is, but it's not the typical Fox News fare there. It's just interesting people, which is why I like your show so much.
Yeah, it's I look at it kind of like as a cocktail party, but a really small one, and it's just people who are interesting. And I try to look at the terrain, and I try to figure out, okay, I don't want to be like anybody. I don't want it to feel like any other show. So the people that I find they have one criteria. They just have to be interesting.
And they tend to be funny because Greg is funny. His monologues are amazing. Some of them suck. That's what I said in the little blurb I gave. And
thank you for that.
And some of them are wrong, but that's okay. Some of them are genius, and so go pour through them. And I just like being a part of it because I just think it's irreverent, and you take on everybody, and everyone gets a chance. My question though is, how'd you find Tyrus?
He emailed me. A lot of the people that I've hired were people reaching out to me. Like in the old days with Red Eye, Andy Levy was leaving comments on my Huffington Post blog.
Oh, my gosh.
We hired him.
Oh, that's so funny.
And Tyrus just emailed me and said one day, or maybe it was on Twitter. He just said, I'd like to do your show. I think I'd be pretty good. And I looked him up and I saw him wrestle. He had videos of him professionally wrestling, and he had a real personality. And so I thought, what the heck? And it turned out to be great. In his first appearance, he just kicked major butt. And I thought, boy, this guy could be my Ed McMahon.
He categorically is. And he sort of, I think he plays that role spectacularly. He really is. Yeah. And then Kat, how'd you find Kat?
She's a writer for National Review. And she was a regular guest on Red Eye. And that's how that happened. And then she kind of migrated onto other shows, and she kind of like started out as our ombudsman, and that didn't really work out because it just didn't feel right. So then we just said, just put her in as the co-host, and it's worked out great.
It's great.
It's such an unusual combination of people.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And that's what I love about it. Let me I want to ask about Kat because I've come to know her pretty well. She's very smart, very interesting person. I didn't ask her this. I'm going to ask you this. But some of the stuff she says on your show, like I find stunning, like stunningly smart. Is she preloaded for a lot of that, or is that while she's sitting there listening to you, she's coming up with this stuff?
I think it's probably a combination of both.
Yeah.
All of us, the whole point of doing these shows is to prepare, but never look like you were preparing.
Right.
So you have to look like you're so quick and smart. But you see what I bring in there. I have like 30 pages of notes.
Yes. You're prepared.
If you watch me in the 5, you can see just this pile of crap in front of me. So it may look like I'm coming up with this stuff, but I've been thinking about it all day. I go to the gym in the morning and I have the topics and I write stuff. And I think everybody on that couch on the GG show comes prepared. They're preloaded. And I think the thing is, and you know this, when you prepare for something, that allows for you to be quick and come up with something new that you didn't expect to say because your brain was already in a direction. You were, to use a Cialdini phrase, you were pre-suaded.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But be that as it may, I make a point when I go on your show of being sure I'm not locked in. That improvisation is really what is the name of the game. And so I'm always...
It could be dangerous.
Yeah.
It could be dangerous.
Oh, it should be.
Time. Yeah, but you every time you open your mouth, especially these days, you're jumping off a cliff.
Oh, and if you're, and again, I'm a super moderate guy, and so to be on Fox News is already like uncomfortable for me because I'm not sure, do I really belong here? Is that where I should go? But when I open my mouth, I always think, oh God, here it goes. We'll try.
Yes.
See what happens.
Yes.
Bob, any questions for Greg about his show?
Well, I've been talking about this thing. I was raised Republican, Goldwater. My dad didn't live to see his Messiah come in Reagan. If you would have asked him in 75, he wouldn't have thought Reagan was the Messiah.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So I grew up in a real conservative household here in Southern California. Went to college, like many people do. Got radicalized. The El Salvadoran nuns were murdered. I don't know if you remember this, Greg.
Yeah.
It was a rallying thing. It changed my politic overnight.
Were you already doing drugs then? Yes.
Just drinking, doing a little coke. Right. But what happened was, and what I look back now, was the Iranian Revolution had happened, and most of the Shah's inside circle came to Southern California. So a lot of kids that I was in college with who helped radicalize me were Iranian kids who were well-educated and well-informed, unlike us stoner American kids.
A lot of Iranian Jews ended up here, too.
Yes.
Iranian insiders and Iranian Jews.
So I became enlightened, and craved knowledge about it. And then all of a sudden, over the last 20 years, have just shifted more towards center as everyone has fled the center.
Well, I'm not sure everyone fled the center. I think we are all being hamstrung by the extremes. I think most of us are in the center.
Greg brought it up. I say some things like I said during the election cycle, I wouldn't vote for her if she was the last person on earth. Being a Democrat, Greg, you can imagine what happened to me.
No, you were a traitor. What you did was, and it was so interesting when you compare during that time the two parties, because in the Republican area there were so many options that you could say. There are people that just hated Trump, and you could say that. That's probably changed a bit. But like, if you said anything, against Hillary, that was you were helping the enemy. And do
you remember what happened to me?
But like what the opposite thing is, somebody like me, when I would be critical of Trump, I would get compliments from the other side, and that would make you feel good. And they call it the strange new respect. When you get a compliment from the other side, it makes you feel good, so you kind of indulge that. So there's that other effect as well.
Interesting.
And so what's happened over the last 2 years to me is I've just tried to stay in the center. I like Kasich a lot. As soon as I bring that name up, because he has the REP word next to him, a lot of my friends just are crucified. There's all the Bernie hopers out there. I said something too, which was Bernie's a lifetime politician. A lifetime politician.
Never had a job.
Right?
Never had a job.
And so a lot of facts just, don't seem to get through to either side. And you're there battling it on the right. What does it feel like sometimes? Because I watch you on the 5.
And before he answers,
does he want to say something that he just knows all the trouble that he's going to get in, so he doesn't say it?
Now you should answer.
Because I definitely don't say things sometimes because I just don't want the onslaught.
Yeah, you know what? We live at a time now where it's like you can choose not to look up at this giant cloud that explodes and just live your life, and it probably won't matter. But because of the internet, because of social media, something that you would say casually could destroy you, or it could make 4 days of hell for you. Did you follow what happened with NoFX recently? The
Fat Mike said something?
Yes.
I'm sure he did.
About Vegas, right? Did you see that?
No,
they lost all their shows. And I mean, he said something really stupid. But the thing is, you can't say stupid things and expect it not to stay. Now it gets captured. It's forever. It's on the bathroom wall that is Twitter. And so I am now extremely careful about the things that I say. And maybe that's good. I mean, it's weird how religion is now replaced by social media.
Well, that's generally, I was thinking about this morning, gentlemen. I was thinking generally how religious fervor has been about religion has been replaced by religious fervor about Suboxone replacement, about veganism, about
transgender
politics, transgender, whatever it is. We develop religious fervor because we don't. Maybe it's because we don't have religion. I don't know.
But I
think that's true.
But
I
was really looking.
We need a place.
I was really looking forward to talking with you, Greg, because I think you're at the center of it. To me, Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, Louis C.K., George Carlin, this is where we heard things that, like what you're saying, that could come to haunt people, but comedians or satirists were allowed leeway, and now they're not. Now they're not.
It's. I think like I'm torn on this point. Like, why should comedians have a right that you don't have rights? I don't consider myself a comedian. I was a writer, a magazine writer who ended up doing this for a living. But like, why do they get special dispensation that I don't? But then you're thinking the reason why they have it is because they're in the front lines.
But I know, but that they're editing themselves. I know that Kevin Hart and Chris Rock are not saying things they would normally say.
But here's the one thing: they better be funny. You know what I mean? They're doing it in the name of funny. Well, they sure as hell better be funny. And sometimes unfortunately, when you're a comedian, sometimes it's a swing and a miss. And so they have to bat 1,000 or they're in trouble.
But the other thing too, the hypocrisy of the audience is that it's funny. It's funny until it gets too close.
Yeah.
So if it's politically, it's like, well, I used to like this guy, but I don't think he's funny anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That just means that the person might have said something that upset you. By the way, people on the right do that and the left.
Well, this is the part. This is what's got.
I love. I don't know. Who can I think of that isn't in? I love Kevin Hart until he said that one thing. people are like that about everything. I used to like you until.
Yeah,
that's the phrase.
And they believe that somehow that one thing, whatever it was, which may have been just some sort of casual, not even consequential thought, is speaking volumes about your internal world, about what you're thinking inside. This is a Scott Adams thing, right? That we can know people's thoughts by virtue of some casual remark they made. And the casual remark may have just been a mistake.
Yeah. No, and the other thing to this point is Bill Maher is a good example of somebody who he'll say something that I just go, what a jerk. And then a week later he'll say something and I go, he's absolutely right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the healthiest, is to take people depending on the things that they say at the moment and don't, like you say, ascribe an entire character based on one thing.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Now,
that's how life used to be just 5 years ago.
Yes.
But Bob, I want to tell you something. That the one thing that was surprising to me about being on Greg's show, you asked about the service he gets, is that his audience is so appreciative of what he does and anyone that goes near him. He doesn't seem radioactive to me, but I got tons of, Greg, really an onslaught of, oh my God, thank you, good job, and we appreciate him, we appreciate you sort of being a part of it.
Everybody gets that.
Yeah, but I've never had like that.
I know that there's nights on the 5, because I watch it, that you're just like, I'm just going to get out of here alive.
I'm trying to think of the topics too, but there's a point where like you just go, what is it like? It's like I'm trying to think what it is. It's like walking into a bar in an old Western and you realize that you don't want to make eye contact with the guy at the end of the bar because you might get a bottle over your head. It's about ideas. It's not about people. It's about when you're approaching an idea in this bar, you could end up causing a complete, I don't know, riot or trouble. So, and there are certain topics that you just.
Well, let's pick a topic. Can we? Because I really want to know your opinions about things. Paul Ryan has really not held up his end of the bargain as the leader of the Republican Party that he is. McConnell, I think of like there's no difference. McConnell's like a used car salesman, but I believed in Paul Ryan that he was going to stand up, and instead he's just walking out.
Yeah, you know what? I think he is one of the people who got wounded by the change. And this is going back to we talk about Scott Adams a lot, but the emotional effect of 2016, if you can't get beyond that, you will never get beyond it. And I think Ryan, like there's some people who haven't come back from 2016, and he's one of them. But I will say this, I never trusted Paul Ryan ever since he did that photo shoot working out in the gym. That didn't sit right with me. Remember when he was lifting weights?
Yeah, I do.
Remember that?
I just always get suspicious of people who stay away from their children most of their child rearing years, and then all of a sudden they need to get back to their children when they're fucking teenagers, when they don't want to see you at all.
You know what's so funny? I don't have any kids, so I will never have that excuse. When I get in trouble, I'm going to need to spend more. I just really want to spend more time with my non-existent family. You know what it is? That's actually it's bigoted. Why do they get that excuse?
It's the craziest excuse that that so many people have used over the years, never get called on. There's a laziness in journalism. There's a laziness in the population of critical thought, right?
Oh my God.
And so right when he said that, I laughed, and my wife said, "What?" And I go, "What a fucking chicken shit thing to say. I'm going to spend more time with my teenage daughters. Oh, they'll be happy you're home."
Well, the point. Here's what I hear when he says that. I said, "Oh, you weren't there during the important years, and now you're trying to make up for it. Good luck."
I hope he has our phone number.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what's in my head.
It's the first thing. I mean, like you have all these crisis PR firms, that manage things. I mean, that's the first thing every person says. And can't they just say, you know what? Skip that one. Go to the next one. What would you say? What would you say if you couldn't say that? That would be probably a better thing to say. Don't say I'm going to spend more time with my family. Say, you know what? I'm going to take some time off and figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life.
You know what?
That's the honest
more
answer.
Authentic.
I work with a lot of those firms, right? The money they get coming up with these kinds of, I need to spend more time with my children, thoughts and prayers. This thing, I didn't you know what I mean? And they get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I just sit in the room like, this is ridiculous. Nobody believes this.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's you know what it is, but you know what the upside to this horrible environment that we live in, where every day there's a new scalp, there's a new celebrity scalp scandal. All you have to do, I think, if you're in crisis management, is say, 72 hours, it'll be somebody else. If I was running a crisis management firm, I would try to orchestrate
other yeah, that's the thing to do.
Well, at one point, it's sort of the Trump world where if you're not in a shitstorm, you don't exist.
Yeah,
right. It's kind of like that.
It's just weird. But I think if you just put your head down, it might kind of blow over you. But people are so unforgiving when they join a mob. When they're online, and Dr. Drew, if you say something, even people who don't know you, will get that. And you guys must know that. And it's a really invigorating feeling to be part of a mob, to get that. Remember that girl that flew to South Africa and made that joke, that AIDS joke before she got on the plane?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody was in it. It was just like they couldn't wait for her plane to land so that they could see the response when she lost her job and her career.
That to me, I got none of that in me. That to me is like just anathema to being a human being. But
I think I did a while. When you first get into some kind of political ideology or belief. I kind of felt that little mobby stuff now and again. Like it's in politics, to go after somebody.
Yeah, in politics, though, I felt when I was a part of that, Nicaragua, El Salvador, early 80s political movement, I really thought that we could stop this imperialism in Central America like the Vietnam War had been stopped, because I wasn't informed enough of what stopped the Vietnam War. It wasn't people standing in the streets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was.
You know what's so funny? You bring up El Salvador. I was involved in that I went to Serra High School, which is in San Mateo, and we had a very left-wing religious component. It was the Central American, that kind of like, where they're left-wingers that are like religious.
Yeah. They're like Franciscans or something. There's some sort of radical politicalization leftist thing that goes out of that branch of Catholicism.
Yeah, I wrote. We actually did a whole paper about El Salvador, about what was going on. We did a special edition. The high school journalism class did it on. It was called The Journal, and all the articles were about what was going on in El Salvador and about the nuns.
Yeah,
and I wrote a humor piece called Frisbee Warfare, and it was like exactly an indictment of the American, exporting their beliefs into other countries. And it was and I think I was like 15 or 16 when this was going on. It was like 81 or 82.
81, 82, yeah.
So I have two interesting...
Yeah, two radical lefties here.
I have two interesting associations with this story. A, I went to medical school with the daughter of the guy who invented the Frisbee at Whammo. The guy owned Whammo. Whammo.
She's a doctor?
One, yeah. And number two, the daughter.
Yeah.
And number two, I took care of tons of El Salvadorian refugees fleeing the Civil War back when I was in training. Lots of them. It was bad. It was bad.
What Ortega's doing now.
In Nicaragua. He's like a statesman.
Yeah. And he's like, I think didn't he just put down some protesters?
Yeah, like, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So before we get into the suicide topic, which I want to get to with both you guys, I want to do one other thing. I wrote, I want Greg, you to explain to Bob. I've tried to get him to watch Scott Adams' Periscopes, and he won't do it. But explain to him why we are interested in him, because he's accurate and he predicts the future. And the situation is very uncertain right now. To have somebody who's consistently predicting the future, it's very reassuring for me. Why do you watch him?
It's one superficial reason is that it's kind of reassuring.
Yeah.
Because we're living in a time of so much chaos, to have a reassuring voice that kind of is able to spot
accurately. Yeah.
Yeah. And it turns out it's okay. And it's not as bad, and it's actually pretty good when he's observing things. And it's a great way for me to set up my brain when I'm trying to figure things out. And also, it's non-ideological. This is the reason why Trump screwed with everybody's minds. I'm talking about the people that I am good friends with and I work with, is because you could tell he wasn't part of any team. He could turn on you. He wasn't. He could have been a Democrat or a Republican. I think he chose wisely, because the Democrats, I don't know if they would have been able to handle him. But he was not. He's not an ideologue. He just does what he runs by.
And I think he's very intuitive. And I don't think he planned to be what he is, but what he is evolved and works.
Yes, and I also believe that because he's older, he doesn't give a damn. There's something about him that's changed. But the Scott Adams thing is it's reassuring, it's non-ideological, and it makes me change my mind about ideological things and admit that I'm wrong. And he has a very specific way of getting you to open up about being wrong. Like, it's not bad. It doesn't have to hurt to be wrong.
Right.
And it's really helpful for me when I'm going like, well, maybe there was one thing he was talking about that he convinced me of, that I knew I was right, but he's convinced me that I might be wrong. And I think it might be video game. I think it might be violent video games. He has.
They don't. What is his theory? I don't think they have any impact. I don't think they have any impact.
No, it doesn't, except on at-risk youth. It does.
Yeah,
and that's his point, and that's true.
Well, yeah, that kid and Sandy Hook kid. Yeah, it had an influence on him.
Hold on, he did. I want to dissect two things.
That's
he said.
Bad parenting.
Two
that
things
happened that caused Sandy Hook.
Well, that was a parent in denial and didn't get that kid help.
A lot of these parents are in denial.
Yep,
it seems
absolutely.
Like each one.
Absolutely.
know?
Two things he said I want to deconstruct. One is you brought up what Trump has evolved into. He talked about something yesterday called fatalism, which
Right.
is Trump's. I think what Trump meant by that is, and Scott made me understand this, is that he's willing to go in and just throw all the cards on the table, and then whatever
Right.
happens. He's
Yeah,
fatalistic.
it's all going to work out.
Yeah, it's all going to work out.
The motto of his administration is, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's,
Well,
Which is very, very
I
unsettling.
want to get your take on something that's
Hold
a
on, Bob.
friend of
Let
mine
me
said.
finish.
Oh, okay.
Please let me
Okay.
finish. Please. So that was one. Number two, though, is that he made a point about the left trying to understand what's in Trump's mind, right?
Right.
And he has blogged something about all his so-called racist sort of actions and statements that Scott Adams insists is fake news. Mm-hmm. And I think Scott is wrong. I think Scott is missing, because he has cognitive dissonance sometimes about his own analysis of cognitive dissonance. and so here's his cognitive dissonance, that how people define racism has passed him by. It's not explicit racism. It's something far more broad, and it's all given the same valence. And so all these sort of little hints of how Trump isn't paying attention to his implicit racism is racist. And Scott kind of misses that. Do you agree?
I can see that. I mean, look, I can see. I'm worried about the idea of implicit racism, because like the Starbucks training. I didn't say there's a problem with it or not. I said that's the way a certain population is looking at it. Oh,
and
okay.
if you don't understand that, you don't see it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also, I mean, it's like, I have a friend who, he's African American, when he looks at Trump, sees him as just an old racist white man.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he sees.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm thinking, I think in his history, he's come across a lot of those.
Yeah.
So he just sees an old white rich guy who,
but that's racist in its inception, because he has taken advantage of white privilege and all this stuff. Yeah. And so someone's got to. I don't know how we connect the sides on that one, because people are not hearing each other. Again, it's Yanni and Laurel. It really is. Okay, Bob, I apologize. Please, I wanted to get that. I planned all day to get that out, so go ahead.
So do you? Well, now this has piqued my curiosity, right?
Yeah.
I think Trump is racist. I think we're all racist on a continuum.
Well,
I think we're all racist.
Yes, I don't disagree with you, and I think there are a lot of people that strongly agree with you.
But I don't necessarily know that that's as important as classist.
Oh, well, we haven't had that conversation yet.
That's really what Trump is. He likes everybody if they're rich and famous. You know what I mean?
But then why is it? It's so, because I don't see that with him. I think he was into famous people. He loved
famous.
The concerts, meeting whether it's Bono, and none of them like him because they were classist.
Yes.
To me, like he's not cool. There's a class structure with cool and not cool, and Trump is not cool. His supporters are not cool. They're constantly made fun of as being not cool, and that's why when you see the Hollywood revulsion, when you see the Sarah Silvermans and the Lena Dunhams, and they're cool. They're basically, what they're saying is that they have cool privilege, right?
Yeah.
Cool privilege.
They have cool privilege.
I love it.
So they can use the C word, about anybody, because they're cool and you're not. And by the way, I'm in the citadel of uncool. Yeah. There's no way, no matter what I do in life, I'm not going to be cool because I'm at Fox. But I don't mind, because I actually think being uncool is actually the new cool.
Maybe.
That's that radical center is what I'm talking about, right? The radical center. But one of the things I do know a little bit about where you work is an old acquaintance of mine took over the leadership role there. His name is James, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So James is not conservative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I've never met him. I know his father, but I don't know any other. I haven't met anybody else.
I just felt like maybe Fox is gonna expand, but now I just heard that he's being taken out of that position, right?
I'm the last person. I'm not in those meetings.
But how do you explain you being on Fox?
Oh, that's what makes Fox great. They put me on at 2 a.m. to start because they thought I was interesting. Nobody gave me any input. This is when I started Red Eye 11 years ago. They let me hire my friends, and we just did and this is all a combination of people, Roger Ailes and John Moody and Bill Shine. The idea was that anybody can do a show. Just throw them into the pool and see if they swim. And that's kind of what they did with me. And then even when the show was horrible, and it was, if you ever saw the first probably 6 months of Red Eye, it was terrible.
I used to do that show. I love doing it.
It got great because we learned to swim, and they stayed out of our way. And I think there are a lot of unusual, unique, and fun people on Fox. And it goes back to this point that Fox is not a perfect network. It is a human network. Everybody there has a personality, is human, makes mistakes, and also has a sense of humor. There are funny people there. If you look at another network, another cable network, it's like they're different slices of the same person, Right. And that's not there's a gulf of difference between me and Sean. There's a huge difference between the Five and Fox and Friends. These are like different. The shows are all different animals, and I think there's just oddly more freedom in a center right world these days, and maybe that's the pendulum because it used to be it was the right that were stuffy. And, it was right that was the Dean Wormer. Remember Animal House? That was the right. Now the left is Dean Wormer.
Well, let's see. CNN tends to like to bring conservatives on to shout them down. MSNBC doesn't even have any other view presented on their entire primetime setup, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. So they don't. It's a strict. They eliminated the idea of another side, and I actually find it entertaining.
I like it better than the CNN version.
Yeah. Well, I enjoy, and also I like my favorite person at CNN is Jake. But everybody at MSNBC, most of the people there, I find more likable. Like, Rachel Maddow will say crazy things about Russia on end, but I find her intensely likable. She's just, she just seems like a really nice person.
Joe Scarborough's a great guy. I've known Scarborough for years. He's a really nice guy.
Let me just ask you this. So both of you, I have my own opinion of what the most important news thing that's happened in the last year, and it hasn't been covered by Fox. It hasn't been covered by MSNBC. It hasn't been covered by anybody. It hasn't been in any newspapers except for on a superficial level, and that is that the leader of China made himself leader for life.
Oh, yeah.
And no one... That's real news, Greg. That's real news.
That's how it works.
You know what's funny? It kind of goes into this, how team sport politics is hypocritical. It's not such a big deal now that they're kind of a market economy, right? Even though he's a dictator.
It's crazy. But at least they switched out the dictator every 12 years. Now they're just not going to.
So they got a good one. What are you going to do?
They got a good one. That's the point. That's the point. It's like,
how can that not be a discourse in America?
I think, you know what? Maybe in a different era when we didn't have we're in a constant news cycle. Like that's got to be that's on the bottom of the list because, frankly, it's not as interesting as Trump.
Yeah.
Trump,
John
expands to fill the room.
But Paul Ryan needed to be talking about it.
What's he going to do?
Mitch McConnell needed to be talking about it.
What are they going to do?
What?
What are they going to do?
Well, let me tell you one thing that I know. That I was told by somebody who I really respect. Eventually, it gets down to Russia, America, the West, and China. That's it. It gets down to that. Mm-hmm. Right? A war of civilizations is not Islam against the West. It is China and the West.
I would disagree.
Well, just hold on. Who would you rather have on? Would you rather have Russia on the side of the West or on the side of China? Because if it's on the side of China, it's game, set, match.
Mm-hmm.
Geopolitically
I agree with that.
And economically, it is game, set, match.
I think that's why Trump wants Russia in with us.
And I think, yes, that's what the whole Russia thing is about.
But since you brought up Islam, I would say that what worries me more is an existential belief in the afterlife as the motor in your actions in radical Islam and Islamism. That worries me because, like Russia and China, they're not going to the mutually assured destruction. we're not going to blow you up. You're not going to blow us up. But if you believe that the more people you take gets you a quicker road to heaven and a higher place in heaven, that scares me. The idea, the existential apocalyptic ideology. That scares me because it only takes one guy and a dirty bomb.
You're getting back to the thought police. So let me give you an example of moral equivalency. It was very much known that bin Laden was trying to get a dirty bomb. He was actively seeking it after 9/11. Anybody who works in intelligence will tell you that. Guess what, Greg? Nobody sold it to him. Mm-hmm. There was North Korea didn't. Yeah. Russian oligarchs didn't. The crazy Khan guy in Pakistan didn't. No one would, because there's a greater good, I believe. Right?
I hope you're right. I do.
That's what I truly believe.
But do you think? Okay, let's take Omar Mateen, the shooter in Orlando. Do you think if he had access, he would have gone bigger? I think any of those guys that believe that they're going to take their own life in this would choose the greater devastation if it was available. That's what worries me, is that there are more of these loose cells than there are countries, and they're everywhere. I might be now. Granted, I think about this probably too much, and I joke about it. I do. I've had debates where I believe that this is the mirror of other people's climate change. The way people are consumed by climate change, I am consumed by the possible dirty bomb. Or
why don't you bring Sam Harris on your show?
I've actually asked him, and he has said no.
Huh?
Yeah. In fact, I actually reached out to him through Penn Jillette a long time ago. And I think he was worried about probably being on Fox, although
he has softened.
He's been on the O'Reilly Factor a couple times.
Yeah, he has softened his position. He's now saying that, oh my gosh, what would have happened had Trump not been elected? What would that population that is so discontent have done?
Is he actually saying that?
Well, somebody convinced him of that, and he has really softened his rhetoric since.
What do you
think?
I
tell you a funny story about listening to Sam Harris and Andrew Sullivan?
Yeah.
They did a podcast where it was all about why you shouldn't vote for Trump. So it was a 2-hour podcast. Yeah. It was Sam Harris and Sullivan, and two really articulate, brilliant guys.
Great guys.
And so but Andrew Sullivan goes, now we have to be fair, before we take Trump apart, I'm going to tell you why Hillary and the Clintons are terrible. And 25 minutes. And then by the time he gets to that point, he's convinced everybody
they have to vote for Trump.
Hillary. And I'm like, wow. I go, if this is supposed to be an anti-Trump podcast, they failed, because now I will never vote for Hillary. Thank you, Andrew Sullivan.
Didn't we get a good glimpse of what Bill Clinton's all about this week? With
oh my God.
He's very angry.
Well, not angry.
What does a post-Trump world look like?
Hold on.
Because we're all going to hopefully live to see it.
Hold that thought. I'll let Greg answer that question in a minute. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to transition over to suicide. We've got some calls on that.
Okay.
And really uplifting stuff, everybody.
From dirty bombs to suicide. You get it all here.
We get it all here. Thanks, Greg. We'll be right back.
All right.
Well, you've heard me speak about the supplement Bergamot for about 2 years now, and most recently their sport formulation, which helps reduce inflammation, shortening workout, muscle recovery time. But I want to come back to the formula that originally got me excited about the brand. That is the Bergamot Mega Plus. Yep, the Mega Plus O uses key extract from the bergamot citrus fruit. It's a unique fruit, extremely rich in polyphenols. They've been shown to reduce the risk of heart disease, polyphenols. And Bergamot Mega Plus O works like a natural statin, right? For these medications you use to lower cholesterol. Well, this works in precisely the same way. In addition, though, it addresses another condition called metabolic syndrome, which is abdominal fat, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, high blood pressure, insulin-resistant metabolic syndrome. It helps with that. It also helps with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Now, physicians can recommend different pharmaceuticals for these conditions, but Bergamot Mega Plus O offers the all-natural solution. Cardiologists and physicians worldwide do recommend Bergamot. Its effectiveness is the subject of many scientific publications. I've taken it myself. I have recommended and have patients on it right now. And for a limited time, Bergamot is offering our listeners 25% off any of the supplements by entering the code DRDRW at checkout. That is Dr. Drew, all one word, at checkout. To learn more, visit bergamet.com. That is BERGAMET, BERGAMET.com. And remember that use that code Dr. Drew at checkout. All right, we are back. Again, thank you, everybody, for supporting those that support us.
I got a text from somebody that's saying, where is forgiveness in our society?
Forgiveness
good point.
and gratitude.
That's the most important point.
Forgiveness, gratitude, man. Those are the two things that are, and humility. Forgiveness, gratitude, humility. We are low on all.
But what are those the essence of? They're the essence of love and compassion, right? If you're living a loving and compassionate life, those other things just are a byproduct of it.
But, you talked about it started this about the absence of religion.
Yeah.
And you hear people like Sam Harris struggling to figure out what do you replace it with.
Yeah.
And maybe these are the signs that we need something to replace it with. The fact that they're like every Sunday you went to Mass and you were told to forgive, right?
Yeah.
Nobody goes to Mass anymore to be well, obviously a lot of people do, but
But I've been to Mass and it's politicized, especially in the evangelical community. It's a political kind of statement. I'm an atheist, but I go to church. How about that, Greg? For a little bit different.
That's pretty amazing.
So I was going to church.
You go for the not the
community, and the kind of ideas exchange.
It's good for his soul. It's good for him.
It's good and someday maybe I'll believe, right? But it was beautiful. There's this hippie church out in Joshua Tree where I lived. I went all the time with my friend Victoria, who's a great, great human being. And then the drums of war started this 2003, right? Mm-hmm. And the sermons started to be about, you have to support this, you have to do that. And I saw how politics has infiltrated and inside American religion, and it doesn't have any business there, right?
The other thing too, though, because we're talking about mass shootings, suicides, community. You actually knew what was going on in somebody else's yard or somebody else's family. Everybody knew each other. But I have this theory that our community is being replaced by the community of Instagram, and the status inequality of Instagram is making people more envious and angry about their life because
100%.
They're not comparing each other. They're not talking to the neighbors. They're looking at the fact that Kylie Jenner, has 14 million followers and she's younger than you and she made $400 million. Or they see their friends and I was thinking about this the other day.
But America has always been like that. But the Kylie Jenners of the world were the people that people aspired to be.
Yeah.
Rather than,
which isn't bad.
It started long before they even existed, which is this hatred of the 1%. The 1% were always admired and something to aspire to. To be excellent at what you do and make a great living for your family and make a comfortable existence for your employees. That's
like
lost now. I know.
It's crazy. All right, let's take.
You know what, though? The other thing, too, about this, I just had a thought in my brain, and it was really important, and I lost it.
Let it go.
You were talking about.
It'll come back.
You know what I was thinking about? If I was in 8th grade, let's go back 45 years, and maybe I was in 8th grade, and there was a birthday party you weren't invited to, chances are maybe you didn't know about it. But Instagram will show the parties that your friends are going to that you weren't invited to. Let's say you're in high school.
Yeah.
So you can actually see it's not just about the fame. It's about the status of people in your school.
Well, there's also something going on in birthdays because birthdays are a big part of my world. I got little kids. You have to invite people you don't want to because you don't want to hurt their feelings in a politically correct world. So all your parties are a bummer because a bunch of people you don't want to be there are there. How about that?
All right, let's get a call here about.
I hope none of the parents are listening. Your kids' friends' parents are listening.
I'm just talking about my own birthday.
Okay.
All right, let me get to a call here. We're going to switch gears a little bit. Go ahead. Let me get the call up. 1 second. Josh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to know what you thought about suicide rates and what's happening recently, and seems to be going up a little bit more. And I feel like it's the same animal with the suicide killers who decide to kill people before they end their own life. And the celebrities probably have a different way of dealing with it. That's the way I look at it. But I was wondering what we can do to kind of stop the suicides first, and then maybe the other stuff later.
All right, we got to figure out what it is to do that. But go ahead, Greg. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I always focus because I'm not a medical expert, obviously, but I'm in the media. I always focus on the media piece to this, and I do think there's a relationship between coverage and suicide. There's data on that, and it's why law enforcement implores local media not to publicize teen suicides because they always see the copycats emerge.
Teen copycats. That happens with teenagers. Yes.
Yes. And the same thing, mass killings, the mass killer often it's almost always found with clippings or an obsession with a previous mass killer. I don't see that as a reason for the suicides, but the way the media covers stuff, the blanket, often romanticizing. And I made a joke on the Gigi show that if Romeo and Juliet hadn't been written, would there be less suicides? Because you're teaching
the romantic notion of it, right?
Yeah. But it's like there's a dark romance to depression. Unfortunately, all of our great writers and performers, we always read about the dark side, and it adds to the substance of that person. And I think that the media should be more responsible. But I think that the horse.
No, I have a really serious. I've thought of suicide many times. So I've been in the middle of this conversation. I knew a lot of the people that have committed suicide that are high profile. Right. Mm-hmm. My conclusion is there is some discouragement going on with modern media. It makes overly sensitive people feel hopeless. It's just that extra component that everybody hates each other and everything is so vicious and ugly. Whether All
right, so let's add up the score.
So people who have depression and suicidal tendencies or ideation don't have the luxury of plugging in as much as the rest of the population
because it toxically affects them.
It toxically affects. I felt it myself right after Trump's election.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like this negative energy constantly and nothing positive being said.
That's why you need to listen to Scott Adams.
I hearken.
Really?
But
he thinks the golden age is coming.
About means, but when you're reporting on suicide, it's important not to report on the means because it prevents the visual, and also if the means chosen is effective and simple and neat, like it's not messy. If it's not messy,
right,
you will see an uptick in that kind because nobody wants to leave a mess for their family.
I would also argue, Greg, that the naive quality with which it's portrayed, there is almost zero association between the syndrome of Anthony Bourdain and the syndrome of a Kate Spade. Kate Spade had chronic, severe, recurrent depressive episodes. We don't know what was going on psychologically, what was going on stress-wise, interpersonally, a lot of stuff going on. Anthony Bourdain was a heroin addict who was drinking. Mm-hmm. That is a very different phenomenon. Anthony Bourdain's
How do you know she wasn't an alcoholic?
We don't know. It could have been stuff there too. It would make sense, right?
If you see, this is what I hate about this. We always have to use the examples in the zeitgeist right now.
Yeah,
right. I don't like talking about Kate Spade. I don't like talking about Anthony. I'd rather talk generally. So
exactly, because that's the most important point.
Yep.
If any average American commits suicide, he's not going to get the press.
No,
he's not going to be.
And we're trying to stop the numbers, the 45,000 in 2016, and stop it from becoming 50,000 last year and 100,000 soon, right? And my belief is community.
Yes,
community, reaching out to people. That's the thing that I say has kept me alive. There's about a handful of friends, a dozen friends who I can count on to tell me the truth. And guess what, Greg? Sometimes they told me, you need to grow up. You're being a fucking baby. Right? And it's said in love. Like, I know this man loves me. Mm-hmm. And he's trying to help me, and he's frustrated with what's gone on the last 3 or 4 days, right? Mm-hmm. Other times it's you need to get back into therapy. Other times it's how many AA meetings are you going to? But people are so disconnected, like you said, with Instagram and Facebook and overwhelmed with this feeling of community, yet they have none.
Right. Right. That's exactly right. Flesh meetings, bodies in space
are
necessary.
So I don't care. I don't think we're going to change the society, but we can educate the individual who suffers that you need to build these bridges. You need to have people in your life, or you're going to hang yourself from a doorknob.
All right. So we would say things like mutual aid societies.
Yes.
Families intact, extended families.
Families, that's where it's broken.
Hang on. Communities of all types, churches, all these things should be highly, highly reinforced in the media, frankly. That's where people are going to get that message. They don't know. Remember the book Bowling Alone, Greg? Remember that book?
No.
Oh, it's a great book. It's about how we've had a marked decrease in clubs over the last 50 years, 60 years.
They're attacking clubs.
Yeah, the Optimist Club. The Optimist Club. My mom was in it. She wasn't an optimist, but it had the word connected to it.
But right now it's like people see clubs as exclusionary.
Exactly. I feel that way too, frankly. I do. But there must be some modern incarnation we can come up with that substitutes, that gives us that which we need in space. Hang on, we'll get another. Oh my gosh, we got lots of questions coming in now. Let's get Steve.
But I like to say it's the responsibility of the sufferer to reach out. It is not the responsibility of the society. Can't solve it. I guarantee you that. The individual has to reach out, know that I'm afflicted, just as if you had diabetes and you take insulin. You need to let people know how you're doing. You need to be active and involved in your recovery, or you will hang yourself.
Steve, go ahead, Steve. Steve, we hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay. All right. Well, it's great to talk to you, all of you. You guys really have amazing. I know you hear this all the time. Amazing podcast. Very, very informative. I think you are, Dr. Drew. You're very respectful, genuine. I mean, it's all relative, but it seemed really genuine.
Thank you.
Anyways, Anthony Bourdain.
It's all relative, Greg. It's all relative. It's relative to Greg and Bob.
Unless he says something you don't like, then it won't seem like he is.
Until you disagree with him. Hey,
I used to like you, Dr. Drew.
I know.
Yeah.
Hey Bob, I didn't know who. I mean, I'm 42. I'm mid successful. I live in Santa Barbara, California.
Oh, beautiful!
I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. Bob, I love your story. I love your perspective as well, and just stumbled upon learning about you. Anyway, guys, I guess what I'm calling is I probably have 3 to 4 ounces of alcohol a day. I've been doing it probably, I don't know, 15, 17 years. I do believe that it's my way of coping with, not coping, handling things. It puts me, let me ask you this, is it ever a good thing to do? As it's talked about, alcohol is so bad, but at the same time, in moderation, I don't think
let me try to answer it. Let me try to answer, Steve. We'll Bob a chance too. Is that the reason people use drugs and alcohol for a period of time is that it works. The problem with alcohol is that the slow fade into not working is very difficult for the individual to see. It's the people around you know it, but you don't see it. So people around you may have a very different perception of this coping strategy. And, of course, there are always better coping strategies out there. It's your unique biology that has you driven towards alcohol. And the
benzos would work.
Yeah, great.
They would.
I know, but
I think that's what half of America is on them because of what he's seeking and solving with alcohol.
So what's your answer for him?
Well, I like looking at other drugs that everybody understands. Marijuana, I call it the 5-year snapshot. So when somebody starts using marijuana as a coping strategy or stress relief, it works great for about 5 years. Then that next 5 years they become a little less sharp. They're a little boring. They're not as active or involved in their families or their work as they were. The next 5 years are always a disaster. If you smoke pot for 15 years, you will get to that third 5 years.
Sometimes it's faster than 15 years.
Yeah, but I mean, he sounds like a very...
Okay, I get that, but I'm talking. I work out. Excuse me. I work out 4 to 5 times a week. I run 30 miles, anywhere from 20 to 30 miles. So I do keep myself in shape.
How's your relationships with your family?
I'm sorry.
How are your relationships with your family?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How are your relationships? So alcoholism is defined as negative affecting of your work or school, right? Your interpersonal relationships and your hobbies and interests. Right. So you're claiming there's no effect on my hobbies and interests, running, staying active
also
like that.
Also finance and health. Finance, legal, and health also.
And I honestly do.
I never put health on that.
It doesn't affect. I think it does at times, but it does scare me that I have to, because I grew up that I didn't have to. I'd never used it up to a certain age. And then I did, so I was able to cope. And
okay.
I mean,
we
all have our problems.
Well, it's working. It's working. It's working well for you, and it's impossible to talk people out of it when it's working for them. But do ask the people around you what their perception is, if they believe it's working as well as you do it is, because this is the thing, Greg, about what we were talking about community. All problems humans have that are of a mental health or spiritual nature are solved interpersonally. By ourselves, we're in denial. We don't see things. We need other pairs of glasses to see us. That's where the self comes from, is interpersonal exchange. And of course, everything else comes from that too, including meaning and fulfillment. It all comes interpersonally.
To his, as somebody who drinks, I probably drink every night when I get off work, and I drink when I write.
Well, look what you do for a living. Chief, why not?
Yeah, anybody that works at, that's for everybody that works at Fox.
Yes, but my rule is, if you ever make a fool of yourself once, if you make a fool or if you embarrass the people who love you, that to me is always like the thing. Like when I see it in other people. If you have a friend that just completely embarrasses himself, that's when, and generally people who are really smart, when they hit that threshold, that's when they know. If you embarrass, and I think it's always just good to check yourself. Like this guy is checking himself.
Yeah,
it's actually kind of healthy to say, hey, have I increased it? Have I increased it? Do I know that I'm increasing it? Is it how's work going? I'm getting promoted. Things are going well in my life. It's always good to kind of examine. I think that's a good step. And most people who have problems don't.
And Bob, everyone thinks Bob and I are like the party kill guys. Like,
no, never.
Not at all. Not at all. We enjoy, do what you want.
I like people to have fun.
Yes, and if it works for you, great. But we also, though, because we have so much experience working with folks, we're intuitive about where somebody's at, and that's all I was really using to sort of help that guy we just talked to, Steve.
What I've noticed in our society is this: using substances to cope make you less agile, less strong at coping.
Yes.
Right? There's no
coping.
denying that, right? Meaning there are healthy coping strategies and less healthy coping strategies. America is convinced that chemicals are the coping strategy.
Well, we've lost
if
the
you
idea.
can't sleep, if your leg is irritable, if you got irritable bowel, if you're this, if you're that, you need some medicine.
We've lost the idea. We've lost the ability to accept and tolerate ordinary misery.
Yes.
And if you don't have ordinary misery, you can't develop grit. Because
and that's what I'm talking about.
And now that's where you get back into the whole world of persuasion, is that if you have an idea in your head, chances are that idea will leave at some point. It's like if you want to drink, chances are that feeling can pass.
Yep. Yep.
Well, there's an old AA saying. There's an old AA saying that I was taught is, how do your beliefs line up with your lifestyle, with your life? How do your beliefs line up? And if they're completely delusional to what your lifestyle is, that's what denial is.
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
So
I think mine line up perfectly.
It looks like you're in downtown LA in one of those lofts on Spring Street behind you.
He's in New York.
You're pretty close. I mean, I'm downtown New York. Close to Spring Street.
I see Soho. Yeah, I see Soho buildings in the background. That's what I see.
Yeah.
Sunny. It's sunny there. That's nice.
Yeah, it's sunny and it's raining at the same time.
Oh my God, I know exactly where you are. Is that where you live?
I'm not. Yeah, maybe.
No, but I mean, that building across the street is kind of easy to identify.
Wait a minute, I
and
know.
You said Spring.
Wait, that's
Spring
the
and
Led.
Prince.
That's the Led Zeppelin physical graffiti building.
Let's go here now. Wait a minute. Let me go. Now that I got a mirror there. There we go.
All right, we can cut that all out if you wish, but be that as it may.
Much better.
Soho is so funny. Like everyone lives down there. I walked right into. I forget his name. John Malkovich. Like walk right, like noses almost met.
You see some really interesting people.
Yeah.
I saw Kanye West at the gym last year, and it was just like, you're supposed to be working out in some private heavenly, gym in the sky, away from
psych ward at UCLA.
Well, what do you think about all the Kanye stuff, Greg? I mean, everyone has their own. Go ahead.
I think it's incredibly healthy to hear anybody deviate from the conventional assumptions. And I'm not talking.
It has to be somebody strong,
celebrity
like him.
in Hollywood and entertainment and music. There's no more PC. You can find no more PC person than a music journalist. If you go on Pitchfork or you go read The Quietest, these music sites, they are the most callow writers. And I always like to see musicians step away and do something that makes those people nervous, I guess.
Yeah. And that's what that's what a liberal democracy is, Gregory.
Supposedly.
Yes, it is.
Supposedly.
What was the name of your band, Bob?
It was called Thelonious Monster.
Yeah.
You should see the documentary.
Very popular with the rock critics.
See the
so I
documentary.
don't be talking down my only fans.
There's a documentary about Bob out there called Bob and the Monster. It's very good. It's really a
I'm
great
gonna watch
documentary.
it.
Yeah, Bob and the Monster.
I always enjoyed your role in Celebrity Rehab.
Do you know his and my history together?
No,
Probably don't. So
we were buddies until Drew turned his back on me because of my drug problem.
Right. That's essentially what happened.
it's an after-school special.
I was not as skilled in treating the condition at that point either.
Not my kind of level.
Yeah, nobody could deal with Bob's level. And so I just said, we all got to let this guy go. Fast forward like 10 years, 12 years?
Yeah, in 92 is when you had the police called on me at K-Rock.
Okay, and so at a radio station. And then maybe
that
2000.
was like in 2000.
Yeah, like 10 years later, I'm giving a lecture, and there was this guy that looks like Bob Forrest in the front row. And the whole time I'm giving a lecture, I'm thinking, oh my God, well, Bob Forrest is dead, so there's no way this is not Bob Forrest. And he came up to me afterwards and asked all these great questions. And at the end, he goes, hey, we knew each other one time. My feet almost dropped out from under me. I was so white.
And Greg, it was being filmed, and you can watch him on film looking at me like, who the hell is that guy?
It's so funny.
And it was, what was the guy's name?
Bill Nye.
Yeah, Bill Nye the Science Guy episode.
Yeah, it was a Bill Nye episode.
But that's a good story because I have current people in my life that are where you were.
Yeah.
So that means there might be some hope for
them. There's always hope.
It's amazing. But here, let's just talk about the night. I know you didn't have me arrested, but there was a guy who was talking about sex in a way I didn't like on Love Lines, and I just lived up the hill. So I came down and was going to beat the guy up, and I demanded to be on the air with him to beat him up. Apparently, K-Rock didn't like that, and there was all of a sudden a police car in the parking lot where I was parked.
Was it Adam Carolla?
No, it was way long before Adam.
Who was that guy? It was
Ricky.
It was Ricky.
Yeah, Ricky Rackman.
And I thought Ricky Rackman would stand
I remember
up for
him,
me.
the middle guy.
Yeah. So
Rick, yes.
So then I stole Bob from a couple of organizations and took him.
Music Cares is what it really is.
And I took him over to my hospital, and I could just see his talent and things, and we developed him into this great, not just therapeutic expert, which he already kind of was, but an administrator at the hospital, and exposed him to what it is to work in a psych hospital. And
it was rough.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
But I decided, Drew convinced me to sign up for learning something that I was uncomfortable learning. Which
he used to walk around the locked unit going, this could be any of us.
Any of us. This could be Greg. Greg, you could have had a bad night and you'd end up there psychotic. We have to have compassion towards these people.
He didn't quite have and he was very worried about psychiatry's intervention. Then he developed a pretty skilled spectrum of understanding of how these things work. So.
And that gets back to the Kate Spade thing.
Yeah.
You're assuming she's primary psych. I'm saying there's an addiction component to her.
Well, I originally heard that, but then I heard all the denials, so I'm going to accept the denials at their face. I'm just saying.
No, this is what gets so hard, Greg. I wish we could pick people who committed suicide 5 years ago and talk about them. That's kind of over.
Well, which is the point, that a lot of the suicide in this country is from the opiates, from the benzos, from all the overprescribing.
But I got to tie together. It's because the coping strategy that they used for years doesn't work anymore.
Yes.
And so there's one ultimate last coping strategy, which is doorknobs and it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
And let me just say, while you say that, I don't disagree with you, but let me just pull Robin Williams out of that conversation, because what people forget, he had Lewy body dementia. Do you know that, Greg?
I know. And
his life was hell.
I'll do a tit for tat with you.
Suicide was a reasonable thing.
And so was it for Hunter S. Thompson.
Because of his addiction?
Pain. Crippled pain. Couldn't walk.
Opiates, dude. You know what that is. You know.
Cocaine, dude. You know what that is. How do you know that cocaine didn't contribute to Robin Williams' thing? This is how we do it, Greg. You see this?
It's like Rochambeau with drugs. It's like
paper.
Well, it actually is rock.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right, Greg.
I love having you.
Yeah,
it's so nice to have you.
Yeah, you've been very generous with your time, and we'll
This
let
has
you go.
been a blast, and we got it, Bob. When you get out to New York, you have to do the show.
Oh my God!
I'd love to.
If you don't
It'd be
mind,
so much
I would love to do it with you if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll bring him out. I swear to God.
I'm
'cause
trying to do this
it'd be
rehab
great.
with Lehigh University, but anytime you get tied in with some sort of bureaucratic nonsense, it's supposed to be up and running by now. We haven't
know.
even really met yet.
Yeah. So-
I know Lehigh very well. I spent a lot of time in the Lehigh Valley, so I know the area.
Oh,
Allentown,
it's so
Bethlehem.
affected by opiates. You must have a bunch of friends that are just devastated. No, Bethlehem.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I'm back. I talk to a lot of people who feel that they're being unfairly targeted because of the opiate crisis, that their drugs are being taken away from them. And I know
for sure.
Greg, one thing I want you to.
That's true, though.
No, I know it's true, and I dealt with a woman yesterday with this. You know, if you're taking 6 Vicodin a day and you've been on that for 10 years, please stay on that.
Yes,
but if you have a chronic pain syndrome and you're on a large concentration of opiates, you will get better coming off it, and there's zero clinical evidence that what you're doing has any benefit to you. And it's endangering your life. That's the science. The opiates don't treat chronic pain. I can't say that strongly enough. It's not like we're saying, oh, but these poor people are suffering, we're targeting them. No, they will be better. I guarantee it. I guarantee it, because the science is clear. The opiates are creating the pain and maintaining it. It's clear.
Do you get a lot of response from the pain networks?
They want us dead. They want us dead. That's all.
Except
they write to me, and I get a lot of really heart-wrenching stuff.
I'm telling you, there's no evidence that is what's happening. The science is the opposite. So they can't see that because they're in it. But Bob and I, our last 10 years of our career, that's all we did was take people off opiates. That's all we do. And 3 weeks later, they're tap dancing.
Wow.
And it just happens 100% of the time. And so it's not like, unless somebody has some dramatic organic issue that you can sort of see, even then there's better ways than opiates. Opiates are not the answer. Have you read the book Dreamland yet?
No, you told me to get it. I'm going to get it.
Please read
Greg,
it.
I'm going to do what I did. Just watch the documentary. It's much easier.
You know what's great about documentaries? They're basically our books.
Yeah.
They're the Cliff Notes versions of books.
Well,
Yeah,
Dreamland, the pain thing is how we got into the opiate crisis. It's how we got here. And it cannot pull us back into it again. And it's not – if I thought for a millisecond that those people were going to suffer by taking them off their pain meds, of course I wouldn't advocate for that. But they're suffering because of them, and they can't see it. And so that's the issue.
The problem is you can't convince them of that.
Right. That's right. That's the problem.
So, Greg, we got to hang out sometime. I'm coming to New York. Going to go
Definitely.
to Lehigh.
Absolutely. We'll work it out. And and if you guys do it together, that would be great.
Done and done, my friend. I will make sure of it. Sort of by way of wrapping up, remind everybody, KBC 790 and KGO in San Francisco. Look for us there. Me with Lawrence. I'm on with I have Lawrence Savon with me every day.
I love Lauren. She's the best.
She is the best. She's a
the
really
best.
great partner.
It's amazing how her life took a turn.
Right.
In the last oh my God. But
right. KBC.com.
In an hour and a half is the 5 repeat. So if you're
check
you
it
watch
out.
The 5 again.
Check it out, everybody.
I'm sorry, the GG show. No, it's the GG show, not the 5.
GG show, and then the 5. Does the 5 re-air? I thought it was just live, and that was it.
No, it's just at 5.
Okay, so
I got confused.
Greg Gutfeld show. Check it out. I cannot recommend the show strong enough. To me, it's. I mean, if you like,
ideas.
Well, no political. Everyone likes the Daily Show. Everyone likes Colbert and stuff. This is that better, I think. I just like Greg's way of doing it.
I don't like John Oliver.
All right, whatever. It's the same. Zone.
I'm
but
smarter than you. for 25 minutes, I'm smarter than you, and everybody laughs, and it's just like, I don't know. I play the fool. My show is I'm not pretending to be smarter than anybody. And it's obvious.
That's right. Okay. Remind everybody, this #you live. I've got the Dr. Drew podcast, drdrew.com. Me and Adam do a daily podcast now. Greg, I don't know if you're aware about that. New Swole.
No.
Yeah, we
That's
do it.
Great.
He and I do a daily one. Swole Patrol, and of course, Weekly Infusion. Find us all at This Life Podcast and tell us your thoughts at #you live. Hydrolite. Don't forget our friends at Hydrolite, who I just cannot advocate strongly enough. That is a hydration product. Everything else on the market is nothing compared to this. That's the simplest I can say.
I'll leave you with this. This is a text from one of my friends who was an opiate addict in pain management clinic. I totally lived what you and Dr. Drew said on your podcast. You get so much better when you get off opiates. I had more pain and more serious anxiety and panic attacks on OxyContin than I have since getting off it.
That's it. And that's been our
the hope,
That's
Greg,
been our
right
experience without exception, Greg. So that's why we can say it in sort of a blanket way. Now, of course there are exceptions, and treatment needs to be personalized, and I get it, and whatever. But let's be clear here. This is not a treatment for chronic pain. It's just not. Right. So, Greg, thanks so much, buddy. We'll see you out in New York.
Later.
Bob and I'll come visit you.
That was great.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. We'll see you all next time. Well, I think everyone's aware we just went through a terrible flu season and allergy season coming up. Hydrolyte. Stay ahead of your hydration. Quite simply, Hydrolyte is the best oral rehydration product I've ever tried. I've said it a million times. This is an exact product I intended to create because I knew we had a need for it. And these guys, apparently they own Australia, and they brought it over here, and I can't say enough about it. My son just had a norovirus. He was extremely sick, and we literally avoided hospitalization by keeping him rehydrated with Hydrolyte. So I am grateful to them. I understand what this is. This is, this is the kind of replacement you need if you're dehydrated, if you're vomiting, if you have diarrhea, if you're working out hard, and just daily in life. Some people tend to not pay attention to staying hydrated, and this is the way to do so. It's more than water. You've got to understand, water is one piece of hydration, but the solute, what's in the water, is what really gives you the volume replacement. So whether you're sick or not, you can absolutely benefit from proper balance of sodium, glucose, and water. Hydrolyte does this better than sports drinks, or certainly better than water alone. Great flavors, orange, berry, and lemonade. I, of course, like the fizzy tablets that you put in a bottle of water, and there you've got them. Hydrolyte delivers up to 4 times the electrolytes with 75% less sugar. Solutions are appropriate for all ages, and each bottle or package includes easy-to-follow instructions. So you can find Hydrolyte at Rite Aid or at hydrolyte.com/Dr. Drew, D-R-D-R-E-W. And for a limited time for our listeners, you can save 30% on Hydrolyte. Just click on the banner on my website at drdrew.com and use the code DRDrew18, D-R-D-R-E-W 18 at checkout at hydrolyte.com/DRDREW and use the code DRDREW 18 at checkout. Get that great discount. Hydrolyte, you will not be disappointed, I promise. All right, that's about it for this episode of This Life. Check us out at KBCB in Lawrence Savon, 790 Midday Live Talk Radio, Monday to Friday. You can also tune in every day live via the magic of the internet at kbc.com. If you miss it, we've made it simple for you to find all the shows at drdrew.com, the Adam and Dr. Drew podcast, the single one I do by myself, the Dr. Drew podcast, This Life, of course, with Bob, Swole Patrol, Mike Cantho, his new health and fitness podcast. You can find us on Twitter at This Life Podcast, at Dr. Drew, Derry W, at Rehab Bob Forrest, and of course, our lovely producer at First Lady of Love. I think I know who that is. If you love this show, please subscribe and tell a friend. We appreciate it when you do. We'd love to hear your feedback as well. Send us a message. Join the email list at drdrew.com, dr.com/contact. You'll also get a weekly email from us on that. While you're at it, at dr.com, please support our sponsors by clicking through the banners. We only advertise products that I can get behind. So thank you for supporting them, those that support us. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, it's the Swole Patrol, the best podcast about fitness and being super buff. Mark Bell is our guest, and he's super jacked. He bench presses more than you, I can guarantee. Our guest today is James Preston Rogers. He has 3 names because he's fucking huge. Talking to Vinny Torderick. Once again, he has a documentary about fat, and you will eat fat, but you will get thin, all veiny and all swole. And our guest is Chrissy McCagney. She is awesome. Guest is Steve Sim, and he is super buff, and he trains celebrities and Olympians, so he knows what he's talking about. We have our first female guest, and she's awesome. It's not because of Me Too or if the time's up, it's because she kicks ass and she knows a lot. She is Natalie Jill at NatalieJillFitness.com, at NatalieJillFit on Instagram, and Twitter, I think that's not on here, but we'll go with it now. We're talking to a girl with a big ass, and she made it the proper way. She had negative ass, I can't believe it. Now I go on Instagram and look at Abby's ass, and I have to go be by myself so my wife doesn't see me masturbate to pictures of her ass and her thighs. Oh yeah.
That was amazing. That was a really good song. Good freestyle.
It's fantastic.